In this video, I'll be covering arguably one of the toughest tasks to complete here in a given week of fantasy football, and that's picking 5 wide receivers to put on my bust radar as potential sit candidates for your lineups here for this coming week 4 NFL action. The wide receivers play this season has just been nuts. They've been on another level here and really producing solid numbers. There's a humongous pool of players that have done some really great things to start this year, and of course are really intriguing lineup options in a given week. So my job for today is to give you 5 names I'm a bit concerned about here and would be looking to keep on my bench. Let's dive into the video and get started. As always, you guys, I welcome all of your questions in the comment section below, and I'm interested to hear what you guys need help with for this week's games. As always, though, we do need to talk about our picks from last week, and this was by far and away our roughest category of the week in terms of overall success on our picks. We went just 2 of 5. Now, I classify this video as bust candidates as opposed to just absolute sit players for the simple fact of what I talked about in the intro. This has been a position group just playing out of their minds to start their season, and there's been a solid 30 to 35 names that I feel could be starters for almost any team, and these are obviously players that are desirable flexes for some lineup situations. But the 2 that we hit were DJ Moore and Elijah Moore. Elijah actually had 10 targets. He just didn't convert and wasn't able to make the most of those opportunities. And then DJ Moore really struggled. Another 6 target game, just underproduced with those opportunities. So unfortunate there. The misses that we had were Brandon Ayuk. Only caught 3 balls though, 39 yards, scored a touchdown. So some bad luck there, despite the fact that Debo, of course, was heavily factored in that contest with Jimmy G back. DK Metcalf was our other miss there. Had 12 targets, only caught 5 of them though, so less than a 50% catch rate. What are you going to do? He goes up and mosses a guy in a 50-50 jump ball for a touchdown. Just the name of the game. The Falcons, maybe I should have seen this coming, but they're 24th in pass rush pressure rate, so they're bottom 8 in the league in terms of rushing the opponent's quarterback to throw the football. So Geno Smith sits back there, pats the ball, and you've got yourself a 6'3" monster of a human being to go up and make a play. So the last one was Terry McLaurin, 9 targets, a season high for him, and really made the most of the opportunity against Darius Slay in that tough Eagles secondary. They were struggling a lot early in this contest. There's that stat and, that meme where I've seen it 100 times this week. The Eagles had 323 yards passing and the Commanders had -1, but garbage time Carson Wentz strapped up he laced up his boots and, strapped on his pads and off to work he went with some garbage time analytics and got Terry McLaurin some good opportunities there. So into our 5 sits now, or our 5 bust radar candidates. Allen Robinson, sorry buddy, I'm not smiling back at you this week. I've lost my faith in Allen Robinson. I loved him coming into draft season, the talent, the role I thought he could have played for this offense, but the reality of the situation is he's only had 5 targets or fewer in each of the first 3 contests. That's a red flag. He's got 88 total receiving yards on the season. That's a red flag. Fewer than 30 receiving yards per contest. He looked awesome in week 2. They really tried to force feed him the ball. He actually had a touchdown waved off. And they got him the football early in that contest, but they just crumpled that up into a flaming hot ball of disastrous trash and threw it in the garbage can this past week and just didn't really get him involved in that game. So I get it. The Rams had a favorable game script there. I don't expect that to be the case this week, so maybe some garbage time Allen Robinson comes out and makes some fantasy owners proud. But this San Francisco matchup is such a mismatch in the favor of the 49ers. They're the more physical team. Their front 7 is far better. I expect pressure on Matt Stafford, similar to what we saw week 1 against Buffalo. And I think it's going to be a dramatic meltdown here. I talked about this earlier. I forget. It was in a different video. So not earlier if you're just watching this one as the first piece of Sizzle Fantasy Sports content you've consumed. But I talked about, 7 straight games. I forget the exact number that the San Francisco 49ers had won prior to the NFC Championship game last season. Kyle Shanahan had totally dominated Sean McVay and had his number. And ultimately what that comes down to for me is physicality. This Rams team is more of a finesse offense. They're not necessarily looking to play, tough football. I can't believe they won the Super Bowl last year, given that the NFC had some physical teams in it, but they were able to beat teams like Tampa Bay. Green Bay is a bit of a finesse team as well, but they didn't have to face them. And of course, they ended up beating San Francisco when it counted. But for me in the regular season, I hate this matchup. I think Allen Robinson right now is looking kind of like a fantasy fraud. I hate to say it. I think he's still a really dang good player. But if you're not getting opportunities and you're not getting consistent targets, that's going to be something that holds down your opportunity to be someone in our starting lineups here. Rashod Bateman taking on Buffalo this week. Look, you've got a buttoned-up Bills defense. We saw against the Patriots, a buttoned-up schematic team, a team that doesn't really have elite secondary play. He struggled, and even though he dropped what looked like would have been a humongous play, possibly a touchdown, he still didn't put up the numbers in the box score that we were looking for. The same red flag I've had in the first 2 weeks of the year prevailed again in week 3. He's played 66% of snaps or fewer every week here, you guys. So the amount of 3 tight end sets and heavy personnel packages this Baltimore offense likes to put on the field is limiting the receiver play at this point in time. I'm surprised things are like that, considering the fact that Hollywood Brown is a guy of smaller stature that was out there, I'm sure, a higher number of snaps than that last season. But Bateman just hasn't totally been untapped here as a every single snap of the game type player. So he looks awesome. His talent is off the charts. I totally love this guy coming out of the 2021 class. He was one of my favorite wide receivers, one of the most underrated prospects in that draft class, but he's showing us so far he's going to be dependent on big plays in order to score fantasy-worthy production and touchdowns. And maybe that changes throughout the year. Maybe they continue to feed him the ball more in the passing game, but right now, Lamar Jackson's wheeling and dealing to guys like Mark Andrews, who are out there on a higher percentage of the Ravens' offensive plays, especially in the critical moments of the game. And for this Bills defense, again, they were missing 2 safeties last week. I'm not sure the status on Jordan Poyer. I know Hyde's out for the season on the IR, but basically my takeaway on that, even in that situation, is that you've got guys last week like Jalen Waddle who go 4 for 102 with elite vertical field stretching ability. Rashod Bateman's a good athlete, but he doesn't have that type of speed. So I'm not super worried about him getting loose in the secondary and just scoring a huge over-the-top play. I'd almost be more concerned about a big run-after-catch situation to potentially, prove this take wrong here. So again, outlining my reasons why I'm concerned for these players. Of course, if you guys don't have other options, you might just have to start these players. But these are guys that I'm just, kind of tipping my my alarms to you guys and letting you know kind of the issues I'm smelling out for this week. Adam Thielen here. This is a fun one. I really laughed a lot when I was prepping this argument that I'm going to make here, but you've essentially got yourself an early morning. The rooster is just waking up and starting to call. This is a game in London this week, you guys. Set your alarms. This is going to be football early morning. I'm here in the Midwest where I'm on Central Time, so this game is at 8:30. I usually don't wake up until 8 o'clock on game day. I get myself out of bed, make myself some breakfast, hit the shower, and then I'm live for pregame live advice for you guys. And we got 8:30 football, so we'll see on the status of this week's stream. I actually might be traveling in the morning of Sunday, so we'll see if that's possible at all or regardless. But Adam Thielen, besides the point here, you've got primetime Kirk Cousins, baby. That's the whole thing that I was laughing about this situation. This is a standalone game. This is a thing where everyone, if they're awake yet, is going to be tuning in to London football. Saints, Vikings, 2 teams that actually kind of have some bad blood with their playoff history. The Vikes have went 2-0 against them here the last 2 matchups, and that's caused quite the stir. But essentially here, what I don't like is a tough and stout Saints defensive unit. And again, I worry about Kirk Cousins. Maybe Kirk's got some jet lag here. This sounds like the dumbest take ever, but it is a thing. And while he's coming off this being Adam Thielen now, his best game of the season, 6 receptions, 61 yards on 8 targets and a touchdown. That was a soft Lions defense that we've seen receivers have their way with here. This Saints defense is kind of the opposite. I think they're going to try and run the ball and play a bit more conservative offensively to try and limit Jameis's takeaways and stop putting their defense in situations where they're just going and having to make big stops. I think that Thielen's an incredibly touchdown-dependent flex play this week. Thielen would have had 9 points this past week in half PPR with the receiving value alone. We look usually as startable players to have 10. That's kind of our aiming point in terms of a fantasy floor here. But for this week's game, I don't know if he gets there without having that touchdown 6-point play. So those are my concerns about Adam Thielen here. Of course, that TD, he is a TD magnet. He is a guy that scores them at a high clip and scored just his first of the season here this past week against the Lions in week 3. So stay tuned for all that stuff, you guys. Keep an eye on this matchup. Really interested in it. I'll be sitting Allen Lazard this week as well against the New England Patriots. I think we've got a shifting dynamic, maybe a little bit of a paradigm shift here in Green Bay with their offensive deployment of wide receivers. I think Lazard is still a flex level player in certain matchups here, but his season high in targets came this past week on 90% of the team's opportunities to be on the football field, so a 90% snap share there. Just 6 targets. He hasn't been necessarily a volume machine for Aaron Rodgers the way that some may have expected him to here. I think Romeo Doubs is the guy. Romeo Dobbs, I apologize. You guys kept calling me out in the earlier videos. I'm a Packer fan here. I say it weird. I'm sorry. No matter how many times people tell me, at least I'm remembering it now, but I literally watch the games. I hear them say it all day long, and of course, being a Packer fan, it's my team, so I'm heavily invested in what's going on there. But Dobbs, at least give me a break here. At least I'm not the guy that comes out here and sounds out the word and says Romeo Doubs, Doubs, looks like Doubs. So Dobbs. I apologize, guys. Back to Allen Lazard. Back to our, originally scheduled content here. I think that Romeo, we're just going to call him Romeo now. So, no, we're not talking Romeo and Juliet. We're talking Romeo Doubs, the Green Bay Packers wide receiver. Romeo, I think, has taken the step forward in gaining Aaron Rodgers' trust. I think this offense is going to scheme up and really focalize. I don't even know if that's a word. They're going to emphasize and make him the focal point of this passing offense. 8 of 8 targets were caught for receptions by Doubs and a touchdown. Dobbs, I did it again. Wow. At this point, you might as well just go start watching another video. I'm just kidding. Please don't stay here. Click the like button. I appreciate you guys venturing through the Romeo struggles with me here. But Allen Lazard, I think, has been demoted to the wide receiver 2 position. I think that his upside is lower than Romeo's going forward. And in this matchup against the Patriots, I think the Packers play ball control football. I really do. You've got Mac Jones out. You've got Brian Hoyer likely to start. I think it's tough sledding here for the Patriots offense. Therefore, you get a matchup like Chicago, like we saw on Sunday Night Football in Week 2. I think they run the table. I think they blow them out. I think they control the football and pace tempo of this game. And I like A.J. Dillon as a start this week, a little bit of a teaser to our must-start running backs episode up right now on the channel. I like him because I think you're running between the tackles, trying to salt this game away here late. Maybe a quarter and a half, left in the game. Maybe you play half the third quarter still in a tight game or a respectable distance between these teams. And then I think after that, you're really hoping for a touchdown for Lazard or it's going to be a bust again here. So a couple notes. His season high in reception yards is 45 this past week, again, on 6 targets. Touchdown dependent flex roll, not something I'm looking to ride or die with here on a weekly basis. And finally here, our final piece of lineup advice for Week 4 is Treylon Burks versus the Indianapolis Colts. Now, I'm seeing a lot of chatter in the fantasy community about a breakout game coming here for Treylon Burks, and I'll go against the grain. I'm going to be the guy that says to pump the brakes here for another week. I'm going to throw the caution tape out here and recommend that you don't get a little bit antsy and excited before this is ready to come to fruition here. I don't think this is the game where it happens. Treylon Burks has not broken out yet. This is not a high-volume passing offense that's going to feed him the football. And just as A.J. Brown before him was asked to do, we are going to ask Treylon Burks to be incredibly efficient here to put up respectable lineup production. So far throughout this season, his season high in snap percentage has been 69% in Week 3. Nice number there. So Treylon Burks isn't being on the football field a lot. We just talked about Rashod Bateman playing 66% or fewer of the snaps, being a red flag for me. You raise that up to 69%, and you've got a guy who is just barely better than that. So if that's your ceiling, not super into it. It is encouraging to see him playing more snaps and getting more reps in this offense, but at the end of the day, the opportunities haven't been there as well. He's got 13 total targets on the year. Again, that screams a need for elite efficiency. His peers, other rookie wide receivers like Garrett Wilson, have 32 targets to start the year, so over double what Treylon Burks has put up so far, averaging just over, the exact number would be 4 1/3 targets per game. So not loving that here. This Colts defense is a situation where they are a defense that is their focal point here. Their goal is to prevent big plays. They don't want you winning vertically, making splash plays. They want to make you grind out drives here and really sustain long, 11, 12, 13, 14 play drives to cash in for 6 points. They're going to make Tennessee be patient, and I think really stop them from attacking downfield with guys like Treylon Burks here this week. So I'm going to pump the brakes on Treylon. I want to see him break out. He's a really fun player. I was excited about him in draft season, but for me right now, I'm not quite ready to take that plunge on him. So don't drop him. Don't panic on him. I'm not expecting anything here. My expectations are zero, zilch, nada. If he goes out here and proves me wrong and breaks out, awesome. I would love to see that going forward this season. But for me here, this is a simple situation where I just don't trust the outlook and the numbers we have right now to convert and translate into those big production numbers for this week's game. So, of course, as always, I appreciate the heck out of all of you for sticking through this with me with the lineup advice for this week. You had a pretty good overall solid week of takes in week 3. The receivers for sits here, the bust radar candidates were pretty rough, but we're looking to keep, improving here as the season goes on. Of course, this is the toughest one, I think, to predict each week. The ceiling for each receiver is so high. They can go out there and make plays in any given week. So we did very good in our other 3 segments, though. Go check those videos out and check out our takes for this week's games in our Week 3 Fantasy Football playlist on our channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.